When Captain Edmund Harrington brought aboard that green-eyed woman who stepped onto the London dock that April morning, he did not yet know that he was taking on something far more terrifying than the 5 chests of gold locked inside his ship's vault. The woman appeared to be an ordinary passenger, graceful, quiet, helpless, but every night, with a dark ritual whispered into the wind that swept across the deck, she transformed into something entirely different inside her cabin. A monster. A witch. And every plank, every rope, every breath drawn by the sailors now lay under the shadow of her curse. This story took place in the year 1652, upon the dark, bottomless waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Waters not yet fully drawn on any map. It was a tale of deception, a slow, creeping nightmare that dismantled the walls Captain Edmund had built through years of experience. And above all, it was the story of a witch long forgotten by time who sought to steal the king's treasure. This is the cursed final voyage of the ill-omened ship known as Black Moon. The Black Moon, a grand 3-masted merchant vessel, was taking on its final cargo in the crowded port of London. Their destination, the newly established colonies of the New World. Its captain, Lord Edmund Harrington, 52 years old, carried the salt of the sea in his skin, a seasoned seafarer. His graying hair, sharp blue eyes, and long, sturdy beard made him a figure of unquestioned authority on the docks. He had spent 30 years at sea. He had seen storms, pirate raids, even mutinies. But there was one threat he had never faced, one he did not believe could even exist. A supernatural evil.
The ship's hold was packed with gold, rare gemstones, and bales of silk destined for high prices in the New World. Yet the cargo Edmund guarded most closely was the one locked behind steel doors and sealed with mystical wards. The Royal Treasury. 5 massive oak chests filled with minted golden coins, strategic funds sent to the New World's governor. The key to this vault hung from a silver chain around Edmund's neck, always close enough to rest against his skin. That morning, amid the clamoring of loading crates, a lone silhouette appeared on the quay. A woman. She looked to be in her early 30s, of medium height and slender build. Her dark chestnut hair was tightly pinned in a simple bun. Her green eyes shone strangely even through the harbor's heavy haze. Her face was pale, though strikingly beautiful. She wore a plain gray travel dress and carried only a small, worn leather suitcase. Her solitude and fragility stood out immediately. "Captain Harrington?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic, even above the noise of the docks. "Yes, that's me," Edmund replied, giving her a measured look. A woman traveling alone to the New World, unusual, often considered an omen of misfortune. "My name is Morgana," she said, placing a timid, uneasy smile on her face. "I wish to travel to the New World, a journey I have postponed for far too long. Would your ship have room for a passenger like me?" Edmund frowned. "Why do you wish to go to the New World, Miss Morgana? It is a dangerous voyage." The light in Morgana's eyes flickered for the briefest moment, too intense, too deliberate, before softening into a sorrowful expression. "My husband, he is there, waiting for me. But I cannot undertake such a long journey alone. I'm very tired, Captain. Please, help me." Her eyes seemed to glisten. That fragile desperation pierced through Edmund's hardened shell. He hesitated. As a rule, he disliked taking women aboard. Sailors believed it brought storms and bad luck. Yet the woman truly seemed helpless. Besides, long voyages were costly. "How much can you pay?" he asked, shifting the matter back to business. Morgana immediately produced a small, ornate pouch. 10 gold coins, everything I saved for this passage. 10 gold coins, generous for a single traveler. Edmund suppressed his unease and chose practicality. "Very well," he said. "I accept. But you will follow the rules strictly, Miss Morgana. You will not leave your cabin unnecessarily, you will not disturb the crew, and you will not interfere with their duties." "Of course, Captain. I am truly thankful." Morgana's smile was beautiful, But in that brief moment, Edmund sensed something strange in the depths of her green eyes. A cold, calculating, almost predatory gleam. It lasted only an instant before it vanished. Edmund brushed it off. Just fatigue, he thought. A woman frightened by the hardships of sea travel. He ignored the feeling and pointed her toward a cabin. Morgana stepped onto the deck of the Black Moon. She settled into the small, tidy cabin reserved for her at the stern. She set down her suitcase and looked around. The room felt like a sanctuary compared to the crowded ship full of cargo and sailors. A cold wave of satisfaction spread through her. Perfect, she thought. The plan is working. Because Morgana was neither a helpless wife nor an innocent traveler. She was a powerful witch, carrying the shadows of 3 centuries. She had spent hundreds of years mastering dark magic, deceiving people, killing them, and stealing their fortunes. And now, aboard this floating fortress in the middle of the ocean, she wanted the king's treasure. Morgana knew the ship's hold contained 5 chests of gold. Her spies, the spiritual thralls lurking in the dark waters of the Atlantic, had told her everything. She would steal the treasure, strengthen her power, and escape south to a hidden, ancient civilization. But first, she had to eliminate the ship's 20 seasoned crewmen one by one. She would sicken them, terrify them, and finally get rid of the captain. Her plan was as elegant as it was simple. By day, she would play the sweet, harmless passenger no one would suspect. By night, she would reveal her true nature and curse the ship as a witch. On the first night, the Black Moon left the port of London and sailed into open waters. The wind was favorable, and the ship moved steadily. The crew, 20 men hardened by years at sea, were practical, tough, and deeply superstitious. Captain Edmund, after recording his notes in the logbook, was asleep in his cabin. The rest of the crew was sleeping as well. Near midnight, something stirred in the damp, moonless dark. Morgana slipped out of her cabin. She was no longer the delicate, beautiful woman from earlier. Her face had twisted. Her skin had turned grimy green, like deep-sea algae. Her green eyes had been replaced by an inner yellow fire. Her fingers had lengthened, her nails sharpened into bone-colored claws. Her tangled black hair moved over her shoulders as if alive. She had become a grotesque, terrifying witch. Morgana climbed silently onto the deck. There was no moon, only the cold shimmer of distant stars. Perfect darkness. Only the groaning of wood and the whisper of the sea filled the air. She lifted her skeletal hands. Her voice came out as a raspy whisper, speaking an ancient, forbidden language that invoked the spirits of the ocean. It was a curse spell woven from 300 years of hatred and power. Spirits of the ocean, daughters of the wind, this ship has defied my will. Take it. Let this wooden coffin be cursed. Each day an accident will strike. Each day a soul will weaken and fall ill. And in the end they will all die. The captain will stand alone. The treasure cannot escape me. Black Moon, you belong to me. When the spell ended, she lowered her hands, filled with deep satisfaction. The curse seeped into every wooden fiber of the ship. Morgana climbed back down to her cabin. In seconds, the monstrous face melted away, replaced by the innocent Morgana. She lay down and drifted calmly to sleep.
At dawn, the crew awoke, but something felt wrong. A disruption in the natural rhythm of the ship. Second mate Thomas screamed in horror while inspecting the rigging. One of the mainstay ropes, one of the strongest on the ship, had snapped cleanly, and the spare sail, hanging nearby on the deck, was torn from top to bottom as if slashed by a blade. "The weather was calm last night," Thomas shouted, his 40 years of experience telling him how impossible this was. "There was no storm. How does a rope snap on its own?" Captain Edmund arrived, his face hardening as he examined the torn sail and broken rope. "I don't know, Thomas, but fix it. Immediately. The sooner the better." The crew began repairs, but they were unsettled. This wasn't normal. Ropes didn't break by themselves, and sails didn't tear for no reason. That night, Morgana transformed again. She became a witch once more. This time, she descended into the ship's supply room for a far more insidious spell. In the darkness, She touched the food on the kitchen and pantry shelves one by one. This wasn't poison. It was a curse of sickness, a spell that would slowly consume the body of whoever ate it, collapsing their immune system. Anyone who touched the food would grow weak in both soul and flesh. The next morning, the first victims appeared. 3 experienced sailors, just about to take their shifts, suddenly showed signs of distress: violent nausea, unbearable headaches, feverish trembling. The ship's seasoned doctor, Dr. Harrison, examined them. The elderly doctor looked troubled. "Captain, I don't understand. These symptoms resemble a rapidly spreading poisoning. But I checked everything they ate. There's no trace of toxin. If there were, everyone would be sick." "Was the food spoiled?" asked Edmund. "No, Captain. Everyone ate the same meal. Why did only these 3 get so ill and so suddenly?" A slow dread gnawed at Edmund's mind like a rat. Something was wrong on this ship. Something unseen, untouchable. The days passed like a storm steadily drawing closer. Each new day brought a fresh disaster. More ropes snapped, barrels leaked fresh water, and the sailors fell sick one by one. The rhythm of the ship was broken. Fear began crushing reason among the crew. "This ship is cursed," whispered old sailor Bill as his fever spiked. "Something's on this ship, something evil." "Nonsense, Bill," Edmund roared, trying to hide his own fear behind anger. "There's no curse, just bad luck. It's part of life at sea." But deep down, Edmund himself was beginning to suspect. So much misfortune couldn't happen by chance. It was as if an invisible hand was targeting the ship and its crew. Edmund gathered the remaining healthy sailors. Their exhausted, frightened faces shook him deeply. "Listen," the captain said, his voice firm and commanding. "Strange things are happening on this ship, but panicking will drown us. From now on, you will be more careful. The food will be checked thoroughly. Inspect the ropes from end to end every shift. Most importantly, watch each other. Trust each other." The sailors nodded, but fear had soured even the salt in the air. Everyone looked at each other with suspicion. Who was sabotaging the ship?
That evening, Captain Edmund stood alone on deck under the stars, trying to find a rational explanation. Either there was a saboteur on board, or perhaps... Morgana approached him. Despite the darkness, her face looked delicate and worried. "Captain," she said softly, "is something wrong? The crew is on edge. I hear whispers. They're asking what's causing all these terrible things." Edmund looked at her. Morgana appeared fragile and afraid. She played her role so perfectly that it was impossible not to feel sympathy. "There are some problems on board, Miss Morgana," Edmund said. "But don't worry. I'm the captain. I'll handle it." "I hope so," Morgana said, her voice trembling. I'm very frightened. It feels like this ship wants to sink, as if a dark spirit is haunting it." "You're safe," Edmund said, hand on his sword like an oath. "I swear no harm will come to a passenger on my ship." Morgana gave him that bright smile again. "Thank you, Captain. You're truly a good man." Then she retreated to her cabin. Edmund watched her go. Morgana was a kind woman, enduring difficult times. He respected her. But he didn't know Morgana wasn't just deceiving him, she was preparing the entire crew psychologically. She planted the idea of a dark spirit deep in their minds, ready to take the blame for the curse. That night, Morgana transformed again and repeated her spell. This time her power was stronger. She slithered into the depths of the hold and saw the steel-plated vault. 5 chests of gold sat inside, but the lock wasn't just guarded by the key hanging around Edmund's neck. It was sealed by a powerful magic ward. Morgana tried with all her strength, but the lock wouldn't open. "Damn it," the witch snarled. The royal treasure was protected by an intricate locking system enchanted by the magical guardians. To break it, she needed time, energy, and the captain's blood. Morgana altered her plan. First, she had to completely weaken the crew. Then she would personally kill the captain. Only then would the protective seal fade, letting her claim the treasure. Another week passed. Chaos ruled the ship. Of the 20-man crew, 12 were sick. 6 of them couldn't even get out of bed. The remaining healthy sailors were exhausted, sleepless, and irritable. Food and water supplies were dwindling. Rations had been cut in half. Everything, absolutely everything, was going wrong. The sailors' endurance had shattered, and their anger now pointed at an irrational target. "It's her," shouted the ship's carpenter. "Ever since she boarded, everything's gone to hell. She's a witch. She brought the curse." "Yes," another agreed. "Captain, don't listen to her. We need to throw her overboard." "Ridiculous," Edmund barked, hiding his desperation behind rage. "Morgana is just a passenger. She has nothing to do with this. Stop being cowards." But the crew no longer trusted their captain. Fear had crushed their loyalty. That evening, First Mate Thomas and a group of healthy sailors knocked on Edmund's cabin door. Thomas's face was grim. "Captain," he said sharply, "the crew has made a decision. They want to live, and the only way is for Morgana to leave the ship." "What?" Edmund was shocked. "Leave the ship? We're in the middle of the ocean. That's murder." "We'll give her a small boat, some food and water. She'll have to fend for herself, Captain. 12 men are bedridden. If this curse continues, we'll get sick too. We don't care about the gold. We want to survive." "That's murder," Edmund drew his sword. "Never. I will not abandon a passenger in the open sea. I am the captain, and that is my final word." "But Captain, the ship is cursed. Ever since she arrived, everything's gone wrong. We have wives, children. We want to live."
Edmund hesitated. It was true. Since Morgana came aboard, everything had fallen into a terrifying pattern. But it couldn't be her fault. She was just a woman. She had to be. "No," Edmund said firmly, lowering his sword. "Morgana stays. And if anyone tries to harm her, they will answer to me. This discussion is over." That night, Captain Edmund could not sleep. He tossed and turned in his bed. Was it really just a coincidence? Or, no, impossible. Witches were the frightening heroes of old tales. They weren't real. But a voice whispered inside the captain's rational mind, "What if they are? What if those mighty storms, those starving pirates you faced, are nothing compared to the power of this small woman?" Edmund shot up. His heart thundered in his chest. He stepped onto the deck. It was pitch dark outside. Only the stars were visible. Silence. Then he heard something. A strange rhythmic sound carried by the wind. It was a whisper, yet almost a song, in a dark, unknown language. Edmund froze mid-step, then slowly followed the sound. It was coming from Morgana's closed cabin. He approached the door, placed his ear against it. The voice continued. Morgana was saying something, but it wasn't English or any known tongue. It was old, ancient. Edmund reached for the door handle, then hesitated. What if she's just praying? Maybe she was praying to God in her own language, begging for her husband's safety. But the sound wasn't like a prayer. It was cold, dark, powerful. Edmund gripped the hilt of his sword and gently, almost invisibly, pushed the door open. He peeked inside. And what he saw paralyzed him completely. Morgana stood in the middle of the cabin, lit by a faint candle, but she was no longer the delicate, beautiful woman he had seen on deck. Her face was deformed. Her skin was a sickly greenish gray. Veins bulged beneath the surface. Her eyes blazed, glowing with a yellow flame. Her unbound hair floated in the air like writhing snakes. Her fingers were long and ended in bone-white nails. She was a witch, the embodiment of 300 years of hatred and power. Edmund tried to scream, but his throat had dried up. No sound came out. He just stared, helplessly mesmerized. Morgana held a green, sinister orb of energy in her hands. She was seconds away from sending a curse across the ship. Then Morgana turned. She saw Edmund. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but with the shock of being caught. For a moment, both stood frozen, the witch and the captain, light and darkness. Then Morgana's face flickered and instantly shifted back to normal. Soft, innocent Morgana. "Captain," she said sweetly, pretending to be startled. "What are you doing here? Are you all right?" Edmund stumbled back, horrified. His eyes still carried the reflection of that green light. You did something. I saw it. You're a witch." Morgana smiled, but this time the smile was cold, filled with evil and arrogance. "Oh, Captain," she said, her voice changing, deeper, darker, layered with thousands of whispers. "Yes, I am a witch, and this ship now belongs to me." "Never." Edmund drew his sword with trembling hands, readying himself. Morgana laughed. "A sword against me? Poor mortal man. I am 300 years old. I have slaughtered thousands of souls. Your little blade cannot harm me, Edmund Harrington." Edmund lunged at her in fury, but before the sword even touched her, Morgana raised her hand. An invisible force slammed into him. Edmund froze in midair. His muscles wouldn't respond. The sword clattered to the floor. "You see," said Morgana, slowly walking towards him, "I am powerful, and I want your treasure. The 5 chests of gold. They will fuel my strength." "Never." He struggled to breathe. "Oh, but you will," she whispered, placing her cold hand under his chin, "because you will give them to me, or your entire crew will die, starting tomorrow, 1 sailor each dawn, first the sick, then the healthy, until only you remain. And even then, I'll still take it." Morgana released the spell. Edmund collapsed to the floor, gasping, lungs burning. "Tomorrow morning," she said, not as a threat, but a command, "you will hand over the treasure, or you all die." Edmund stared up at her, terrified. "Why are you doing this?" Morgana smiled, a victorious, triumphant smile. "Because I can. Because I am strong. Because for 3 centuries people have feared me, and I feed on that fear."
Edmund staggered out of her cabin. What he had just seen wasn't a nightmare. It was real. There was a witch aboard the ship, and for the first time in his life, Captain Edmund Harrington was afraid. He slammed his cabin door shut and locked it, dragged a chair under the handle, sat down, shaking. His hands gripped his head. His whole body trembled, not just from cold, but from pure, unfiltered horror. Morgana was a witch. Her face, her voice, her power, all real. The king's treasure, 5 chests of gold. To protect it was his oath.
But the cost of that oath was the lives of 20 men. 12 already lay sick. If Morgana kept her word, one would die tomorrow, another the next day. Edmund reached for the silver chain around his neck. The key to the cargo hold hung from it. The cold metal weighed heavily in his palm. Giving this key to Morgana wouldn't only break his oath, it would deliver the ship into absolute darkness. He thought for hours. A captain was expected to defend his cargo until death. But this wasn't a pirate attack. This was a supernatural war, one he had no weapon to win. Even his sword was nothing. It froze mid-air like a toy in her power. Finally, Edmund made his decision. He would submit to Morgana's demand. He would give her the treasure, but not as surrender, as strategy. If the crew lived, maybe in the new world he could find a way to stop her. At dawn, Edmund stood. His face was hollow with exhaustion. His eyes were bloodshot, but his mind was set. He needed his only ally, First Mate Thomas. He found Thomas on deck, inspecting damaged sails. His face was tense. "Thomas," Edmund whispered, still holding on to his authority. "Come to my cabin, now. I must tell you something very important." Thomas saw the deadly expression on the captain's face and followed him without protest. After locking the cabin door behind them, Edmund took a deep breath and fixed his eyes on Thomas. "That woman, Morgana, she's not an ordinary passenger." "I know, Captain. The curse came aboard with her. The crew was right. She—" "No, Thomas," Edmund cut him off. "She didn't bring the curse. She is the curse." Thomas's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean, Captain?" Edmund, with a trembling voice, told him everything he had seen that night. The change in her face, the green light, the dark song, and the witch's threat, demanding the royal chest. Thomas grew paler with every word. Sailors were superstitious, but a real witch, this was beyond imagination. "Captain, were you drunk or feverish? This is a tale." "I wish it were," Edmund shouted, "but it's not. Thomas, I swear to you, she is a 300-year-old witch, and she wants the king's gold. If I refuse, she'll kill us all." Thomas fell silent. Captain Harrington was the most rational, toughest man he had known in 30 years, not someone who lied, and the disasters on the ship had already gone far beyond bad luck. "All right," Thomas said at last, voice barely audible. "Let's say I believe you. What can we do against a witch? Give her the gold and hand her to the authorities when we reach the new world? I'll give her the gold, but only to buy time. If she takes it and leaves the ship, she'll doom us anyway. She's a witch, Thomas. Her word means nothing." Edmund leaned closer and whispered his plan. "We'll give her the gold. Let her enter the vault. But while she takes the treasure, we provoke her, force her to use her magic. If a witch uses too much power at once, she weakens. That's our chance to strike." "Attack a witch with a sword?" Thomas's face twisted in fear. "Captain, that's suicide." "Maybe, but we have no choice. You know the silver plate on the wall next to the royal chest. It's not just a decoration. It was placed by the wizard wardens who sealed the vault. Rumor says it can temporarily imprison or weaken ancient magic. While Morgana reaches for the gold, you and the two strongest men will keep her close to that plate. And I'll do what needs to be done." Thomas took a long breath. His eyes held the same determination as the captain's. "Very well, Captain. You taught me fear, but this is courage."
After the midday meal, Edmund knocked on Morgana's cabin door. She opened it with her elegant facade, though her eyes glimmered with concealed triumph. "Captain Harrington," she said, mockingly polite. "Have you made your decision?" Edmund looked straight into her eyes. He did not lie.
Yes, I have. I choose my life and my crew's lives over a pile of gold. Take the treasure, but swear you will spare everyone." Morgana gave a cold laugh. "Huh, human oaths are worthless, Captain, but a witch's oath, that can bind. Very well, I promise. Once I have the gold, I will leave this ship and let the rest live." That was enough for Edmund. "Follow me. The vault is in the lowest hold." Edmund led, Morgana followed, and they descended into the dim, damp hold. Thomas, along with Mike and John, the strongest sailors, waited at the entrance, their faces frozen with tension. Morgana saw the vault, heavy oak chests, and the steel door with its intricate lock. Greed tore through her beautiful mask. "The lock," she said, trembling with excitement. "Open it, Captain." Edmund removed the silver key from his neck and unlocked the door with shaking hands. The click echoed. "Step aside," Morgana ordered. "I'll handle the rest." Edmund stepped back. Thomas met his eyes. The plan began. Morgana pushed the steel door open and entered. The chest gleamed in the dark. She reached out and touched the first one. "So simple," she whispered, drunk with victory. "I waited 3 centuries, and now—" Edmund's voice cut through the hold. "Did you really think so, monster?" Morgana turned sharply. Edmund, Thomas, Mike, and John were positioned near the vault. "You are not a helpless widow waiting for your husband," Edmund shouted. "You are the greatest thief the Atlantic has ever seen. I won't let you take this treasure." Morgana smirked. "You changed your mind so fast, Captain, and the price will be your death." She raised her hand, summoning the same green magic that had paralyzed Edmund. The green light flashed. Edmund and the 3 sailors instantly froze in midair. "Fools, you are nothing before my power." But that was exactly Edmund's intention. Force her to use power on all 4 of them at once. She was draining herself. "Thomas, now," Edmund whispered through barely moving lips. Thomas, with the last bit of muscle control, dropped the small copper lantern he'd been hiding. It rolled and struck the silver plate mounted on the wall. Zzz. The plate erupted with pure white light, the ancient, sealed energy of the Wardens. The light clashed with Morgana's green spell. The entire hold shook. Morgana's face twisted in pain. "No, this shield. Curse those wizard Wardens." Her spell weakened. The paralysis around the men began to crack. "Now!" Edmund roared. Thomas staggered forward and grabbed an iron rod. With the white light empowering him, he swung at Morgana. She dodged with supernatural speed and blasted Thomas in the chest. Boom! He crashed to the floor, ribs crushed but alive. Edmund seized the opening. "You want me, don't you? Then come." Morgana turned toward him enraged. "You think a sword can harm me, mortal?" She believed herself invulnerable to mere metal, but the silver plate's energy had changed everything. Edmund struck. The blade met her shoulder. Clang! A burst of magical energy exploded. Morgana staggered back, wounded, for the first time. "Impossible," she shrieked. "What have you done?"
"I am an honorable captain," Edmund growled, "and you are only a thief." Her face contorted into a monstrous form. "You will die. All of you will die." She slammed her hands onto the floor. The ship trembled. This was her final curse. Edmund knew he had seconds left. The plate's energy was fading. He threw his sword aside, grabbed an empty chest, and hurled it at her. She shattered it with magic. That distraction was all he needed. He rushed to the silver plate, tore it from the wall, ignoring the burning heat, and sprinted toward the witch. "Take this!" he bellowed. He pressed the glowing plate onto her fresh wound. Crrrr! A scream that was not human ripped through the ship. The sealed holy energy began eating away her centuries of magic.
Her body smoked, dissolved, cracked. She grabbed Edmund by the throat and hurled him against the wall, but the plate remained fused to her flesh. "You cannot defeat me, mortal," she snarled. But she was already melting. Her monstrous face crumbled like ash. The yellow glow in her eyes flickered and died. For a heartbeat, she glared at Edmund with pure hatred. And then her body disintegrated mid-air. A pile of gray-green ash was all that remained. Alongside it lay her small leather suitcase. Silence filled the hold. Thomas groaned. Edmund slowly rose. Mike and John limped toward him. "Captain, did we do it?" Thomas whispered. Edmund stared at the ash. "We did. The curse is gone." He turned to Thomas. "Get up top. Fix the sails. Check the water and food. Her magic is lifting, but the ship is damaged. We work now." In the days that followed, the Black Moon was reborn. The sick recovered. The sails were mended. The crew spoke in hushed gratitude. No one ever said Morgana's name again. When they reached the New World, Edmund delivered the entire treasure to the royal officials. He explained everything as a violent storm and pirate attack. He could never tell a story about a witch. Returning to his ship, Edmund went to the deep hold, found Morgana's small leather suitcase among the ashes. Inside were only a handful of dried herbs, a torn parchment, and a blackened silver ring. The witch's final remnants. He took the suitcase to the deck, stopped the ship in the middle of the Atlantic, and tossed it into the depths. He had protected the king's treasure and saved his crew, but he knew one truth. Somewhere in the dark waters of the ocean, the shadow of Morgana would remain as a whisper. Edmund looked at the horizon one last time and exhaled. The Black Moon was no longer cursed, but Captain Harrington would never forget what he had seen, or what he had done.